On this Friday night, pinpointing the cause, what likely ignited the tragic New Year's Eve fire at a Swiss bar. Plus heart-wrenching pleas from families of people still missing. The U.S. president's stern warning to Iran if it kills protesters. As questions grow about Trump's health. Critical repairs in the dead of winter, when Calgary's water main break will be fixed, and the damage from a power outage on a Manitoba First Nation. Plus, how out of office is out. The public servants who can no longer work from home.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We are getting a clear picture tonight of how that New Year's Eve fire tore through a Swiss ski resort bar, leaving 40 dead and more than 100 badly injured, many of them young people. Investigators now say sparklers that were held too close to the ceiling appear to have started the blaze. But as Redmond Shannon reports, it's little comfort to anguished families in mourning or still searching for missing loved ones. And a warning, some of the details are upsetting.
Tout ce que je veux, c'est retrouver mon enfant. Tout ce que je veux, c'est retrouver mon fils.
All I want is to find my child, to find my son, says Laetitia Brodar-Citre. The photo she holds was taken 2 hours before 16-year-old Arthur headed out with friends on New Year's Eve.
J'ai reçu bonne année maman, je t'aime.
At midnight, he texted me, "Happy New Year, I love you." I responded, "I love you, have a good time."
Si vous l'avez vu dans les hôpitaux, si vous l'avez vu à la morgue.
She's asking anyone who may have seen him in a hospital or even a morgue to let her know. Swiss authorities say giving those answers to the many affected families is their top priority, but warn that it could take days or longer to identify those who died in Le Constellation bar. Alongside the 40 dead, police say 119 were injured. Many are critically ill. 6 are so seriously burned they have yet to be identified. Most of the injured are Swiss, but many also come from countries across Europe, primarily Italy and France. As Switzerland struggles to deal with the crisis, around 50 patients have been or will be sent to burn units in other countries.
Mio figlio sta male, però sta bene.
This father of an injured Italian teenager says his son is doing badly but alive, with burns to 30 to 40% of his body.
Tout laisse à penser que le feu est parti.
The local prosecutor says the most likely cause of the fire appears to be these: sparklers on bottles held too close to the ceiling, causing it to catch fire. Photos apparently taken in the bar that night show what could have been the moment the fire started. Investigators are looking into whether the foam on the ceiling was compliant, with focus also on emergency access and the bar's capacity. Police have spoken with witnesses and the 2 French owners of the bar. Investigators say there are no formal suspects at this point, but potential charges could include negligent arson and negligent homicide. Colleen?
Redmond Shannon in London. Thanks, Redmond. U.S. President Donald Trump is warning Iran that the U.S. will come to the aid of protesters if any more are killed by the regime. At least 7 people have now died following nearly a week of demonstrations over Iran's economic crisis. As Eric Sorensen reports, many Iranians around the world, including here in Canada, are hoping the unrest could finally lead to regime change.
Protests are spreading in Iran from big cities to small towns, fueled by an economic crisis that has seen Iran's currency collapse and prices soar. A few protesters have been reported killed. U.S. President Trump posted threats to intervene. "We are locked and loaded and ready to go." In Tehran, some say that's not what they want. "We do not fear Trump," says this street vendor. "It's not his business." Iranian television quoted a top leader telling the Americans to be mindful of their soldiers' safety in the region. Last year, the U.S. and Israel bombed and destroyed much of Iran's nuclear program.
They're preparing for another round of confrontation with Israel, if not with the United States. And so they are calculating their moves carefully.
Iran's leadership, which cracked down violently on protests in the past, is taking a more conciliatory tone this time. The government will listen patiently, says this spokesperson, to the voices of the people. In fact, Iran's president blames the country's failings on Iranian authorities. We are at fault, he says. Meantime, on the streets, some are chanting support for Reza Pahlavi, who lives in exile in the United States. He's the son of the former Shah of Iran, who was overthrown in the country's religious revolution in 1979. Protests in Vancouver are calling on Canada to back freedom in Iran. Many living here in exile also support Pahlavi.
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, his name really is what people are calling for. That's the key to freedom in Iran.
It's unusual for Iranian authorities to appeal to protesters for dialogue, but some analysts do not expect that to last.
It's likely that further repression and violence will be seen on Iran's streets.
But the regime under the supreme leader seems weaker now. Its survival and resilience is being tested. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney will travel to Paris next week for more talks with allies pushing for a peace deal for Ukraine. There's been much optimism, especially by the U.S., that an agreement with Russia may be in sight. But today, Ukraine endured yet another round of Russian bombardments. In Kharkiv, at least 25 people were injured after 2 Russian missiles struck an apartment building. Search and rescue efforts are underway for any more survivors amid the rubble. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack on social media, saying, despite all efforts by the world, it is only Russia that does not want this war to end. In the U.S., the FBI announced today it foiled a terror attack in North Carolina, allegedly planned for New Year's Eve by a teenager.
The defendant here is an 18-year-old named Christian Sturdivant. He has been planning this attack for about a year, but he's been planning an attack for far longer than that. He was planning this attack in support of ISIS.
Sturdivant is accused of planning to attack people with knives and hammers at a grocery store and restaurant before he was arrested. Authorities say notes of his plans, along with more weapons, were found at his home. They say he was radicalized online, reading material by the so-called Islamic State. He then allegedly reached out to someone he believed to be part of the terror group, but was actually an undercover New York police agent. Sturdivant remains in custody, charged with providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization. In Manitoba, power has now been restored to a northern community that went days without electricity in the extreme cold. The Pima-Chickamak Cree Nation had been in the dark since Sunday after a transmission line snapped. The federal government now says it's acting urgently to support the community, working with the province and other organizations to repair infrastructure. But with frozen and burst pipes causing significant damage to homes, it's unclear when thousands of displaced residents can return. Neetu Garcha reports.
Bursting pipes inside a home in Pima-Chickamak Cree Nation, an example of the damage left after days without power in extreme cold. Manitoba Hydro says power has been fully restored as of around 1:30 p.m. Friday, but the community of about 8,000 is still dealing with frozen and broken water systems.
The prolonged power outage really did a lot of damage to the water pipes, the main lines, the water tanks, the service lines, and even our major infrastructure is suffering.
Local leaders say nearly 2,000 people were displaced. Many can't return home until heat and running water are safely restored. Several homes are relying on trucked water.
There's one trailer already with a cracked flooring, which shows that their pipes exploded. And there's a crack right along the floor, and this is a young man who relies on dialysis. That his home is damaged.
The outage started Sunday after a transmission line snapped, cutting electricity to the northern Manitoba First Nation. The provincial power authority says the repair was unusually difficult, involving a stretch of line between 2 islands, and that power had to be restored in stages.
It's all preventable. It could have been done. They could have rerouted that line a long time ago down the highway. It would have been accessible, and we could have been fixed within a matter of hours, and we wouldn't have this damage happening.
Absolutely understand the community's concerns, and we're certainly willing to have that discussion. But Putting a power line next to a road or a highway is no guarantee against future power outages or even lengthy power outages. This is not a project that we're going to embark on, certainly not in the short term.
The province says plumbers, electricians, and other supports are being coordinated as repairs and assessments continue, with no word on when it'll be safe enough for residents to return. Nitu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
Calgary's mayor is thanking residents for conserving water after the amount stored dropped to dangerous levels on New Year's Day. A catastrophic break to Calgary's main feeder line on Tuesday means residents are facing water restrictions until the line can be repaired. The same line ruptured and underwent extensive repairs in 2024. Heather Yurex West looks at why problems persist with this critical piece of infrastructure.
There may be some big changes ahead in 2026 for this Calgary couple. A second major break of the city's main water main has them reconsidering their future plans.
It kind of makes me rethink Calgary in general. Honestly, we've, gone to university here. We've been here for 10 plus years at this point, and it's been coming up more and more each year.
More bottled water to go pick up. Okay, but who's paying for it? It's always us, the residents, that are paying for all of this.
Work to repair the line as well as the section of the Trans-Canada Highway damaged in the rupture continued Friday. Officials estimating for now the work will take about 2 weeks to complete.
I got a call at 10:38 at night from Mayor Farkas, and I thought, he wouldn't be calling me unless there was something really urgent.
Addressing the issue publicly for the first time, Alberta's premier praised the new mayor's response, but had harsh words for previous councils for letting such critical infrastructure fall into disrepair.
The seeds of the problem today, make no mistake, began under previous administrations. And so we want to ensure that there's a full review done here, and we intend to make sure that we are involved in every step of the way.
The December 30th break happened just over 2 kilometers away from where the water main ruptured in the spring of 2024. Between June and September, repairs were made at more than a dozen sites along the line. But officials say an early detection system failed to provide any warning, and this break caught them completely off guard.
That's just an amount of risk that's hard to cope with and hard to plan for. And so there will need to be major interventions and investments to resolve this problem.
Short showers and cutting back on laundry has become all too familiar for Calgarians. After the last catastrophic break of this water main in 2024, water restrictions were in place for almost 3 months. Colleen?
Heather Yurex West in Calgary. Thanks, Heather. Donald Trump dismisses doctors' orders. Coming up, how the U.S. president tries to dispel health rumors and concerns, but may have made them worse.
Uy, está temblando. A ver, con tranquilidad. ¿Dónde está?
A strong 6.5 magnitude earthquake rattled southern Mexico this morning, setting off seismic alarms and interrupting President Claudia Sheinbaum's news conference. She said she felt the ground shake as she calmly motioned journalists to evacuate the room. Several small aftershocks followed. No major damage has been reported. The tremors sent people into the streets. At least one death is being blamed on the quake. Local media say a 67-year-old man died after falling down the stairs as he tried to leave his building. As scrutiny over his health increases, U.S. President Donald Trump is pushing back, dismissing concerns about his fitness for the job. At 79, he's the oldest person ever to assume the office of the presidency and is showing more visible signs of decline. And he admits he doesn't always follow his doctor's orders. Our Washington bureau chief Jackson Prosco joins us. Jackson, why is Donald Trump openly talking about his health now?
Well, Colleen, the signs of Trump's aging are more and more visible, and it seems like the president can no longer ignore the questions about his wellness. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he addressed some of the concerns, like the bruising on his hands and those recent public events where he's appeared to doze off. Trump admitted he takes 4 times the recommended daily dose of aspirin as a blood thinner, far more than his own doctors recommend. That aspirin does cause him to bruise more easily, and he told the Journal, "They say aspirin is good for thinning out the blood. I want nice, thin blood pouring through my heart. Does that make sense?" He also denied falling asleep during recent events and said he has always operated on very little rest. He said he tried wearing compression socks for swollen ankles but didn't like them. And he addressed the advanced imaging scans he recently received that drummed up so much news. At the time, Trump said it was an MRI. His doctor now confirms that it was a CT scan. But Trump told the Journal he wished he hadn't done the scan because not only did it find no problems, but it opened up more questions in the public about his health. Now, in a post on social media early Friday, Trump again addressed his health, writing, "The White House doctors have just reported that I am in perfect health," before going on to claim to have aced a third cognitive exam. Now, why the president keeps taking these cognitive exams is not clear. But that post, taken with the fact that his interview with the Wall Street Journal was impromptu and not scheduled, suggests he is sensitive about these health questions. Remember, Trump spent so much of the last presidential campaign attacking former President Joe Biden's fitness for office. Now that he's the one facing the questions, it seems like he's trying to get in front of the story. Colleen?
Jackson Prosco in Washington. Thanks, Jackson. No more hybrid work ahead. The end of a pandemic-era measure sending tens of thousands back to the office. Many Canadians will be heading back to work on Monday after the holiday break. And for tens of thousands in Ontario, back to work will actually mean going back to the office. Public servants there no longer have the flexibility to clock in from home. And as Megan King reports, Ontario is just the first province to mandate in-person work.
As 2026 begins, the hybrid work era ends for thousands of Ontario public servants. Starting Monday, provincial staff will be required to be back in the office full-time 5 days per week. The new mandate by the province scraps remote work options many have used since the pandemic.
Many people rank a flexible work schedule as a good reason to change jobs, even more important than pay. So I would be worried about attracting and retaining workers with this rule of 5 days in the office.
Back in August, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, which represents 40,000 public servants, said the province made this decision, quote, without consideration for the realities frontline public service workers face. But Ontario isn't alone in the change. Alberta is doing the same next month, and Amazon corporate staff returned 5 days a week today.
In-person work is really important. It helps bring people together, and people do work really well together in the office. But it is also true, and we have lots of research to back this up, that for many computer-based, phone-based jobs, the best arrangement for productivity and well-being is some kind of a hybrid schedule, maybe 3 to 4 days in person and a day or two of remote work.
McMaster University's Aaron Reed says the sweet spot of productivity seems to be 3 to 4 days in rather than 5, balancing collaboration and distraction. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says smaller companies located near these offices look to benefit from the change.
Hopefully for downtown businesses where many of these bases people might be based, it could be a little bit of a boost for them. You know, people go where they're working. And so if they're working in a different part of the city, then those businesses in that part of the city are certainly going to benefit from it, no doubt. So yeah, there certainly are benefits to it. But, you know, we did learn during COVID that maybe downtown core is emptied out, but then more suburban areas got a bit busier.
Megan King, Global News, Toronto.
It's only January 2nd, but already Canada's top 100 CEOs have already earned what the average Canadian makes in a year. At $7,800 per hour, the average CEO eclipsed the average worker's annual salary of $65,000 just after 9 o'clock this morning. Executive pay rose to an average of $16.2 million in 2024. 248 times what the average employee makes. Shopify's CEO earned $205 million, becoming the highest paid CEO in Canadian history. Saving lives and time. Next, how 2 Canadian scientists are changing how lung imaging may be done. A pair of scientists at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto is creating a new method of capturing lung images in the sickest patients, and it makes x-rays look archaic. Catherine Ward got a first-hand look at how the technology works and why it would speed up diagnostics and greatly improve patient safety.
Dr. Warren Lee treats patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome.
The blood vessels inside the lung become leaky, and the lungs fill up with fluid. And it's as if the patients are drowning, but they're drowning from the inside. And that's about as horrible as it sounds.
X-rays and CT scans are the primary tools doctors use to assess the condition.
It's like taking a picture at a single point in time of the lung. It doesn't tell us anything about the lung function.
Doctors say there are other risks using this approach.
Chest X-rays have been around since the 1890s. They rely on the use of ionizing radiation, which certainly is not something that you wish to do on a patient very frequently.
To do a CT scan, I have to take the patient who's on a ventilator and wheel them out of the ICU to radiology, and then get them back, hoping that nothing bad happens during transport. It's risky. It's very nerve-wracking.
Together with biomedical physicist Enno Heise, the pair have created a new way to monitor a patient's condition with no radiation using ultrasound imaging and laser pulses.
We illuminate these lungs with a harmless laser source. When the lungs absorb the laser source, they produce an ultrasound wave. This is a modality that can not only identify the location of the injury, but can also show you how much oxygen is within the lungs.
Thanks to a recent win at the Angel's Den research competition in Toronto, the pair now have an additional $200,000. Going forward, they want to use the money to create a prototype device.
I envision a bedside vest that would be applied to every patient in the intensive care unit. It's not just a grand dream. It's actually, we've been able to acquire data and preclinical models to show that it's viable.
The goal is to build and further test the technology in Toronto with the hopes of acquiring additional funding to bring the technology directly to patients in need. Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is this brightly lit Canadian flag at a farm in Saanich, BC on Vancouver Island. We love to see Your Canada. Please email your photos to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a good night.